I knew Brent was going to be a problem the second he referred to our largest enterprise client as low-hanging fruit. But even before his buzzword circus came to town, my world was spreadsheets, contract red lines, and paper trails sturdy enough to survive a hurricane. Not glamorous, not sexy, just solid. I was the firewall in flats. For 8 years, I held the line, translating legalese into English that account managers could understand, and ensuring our most high-risk Fortune 100 client stayed happy, compliant, and lawsuit-free. Their legal team billed in 15-second increments, so you'd better believe precision mattered. I wasn't flashy, never needed to be. While VPs played thought leader dress-up at town halls and sales chased monthly quotas like toddlers after bubbles, I was the reason our legal department could sleep at night. Every change in scope, every new clause, every off-the-cuff promise, they all ran through me. And every time, I CC'd our legal team. It was instinct. It was breathing. Our compliance counterpart at the client, Naomi, once joked I was her spirit animal in contracts. We had rhythm, dry as toast but tight as a snare drum. My kind of work never feels urgent until the iceberg is visible through the porthole. It's the seatbelt you hate, until you crash. Most days, I just sat in my ergonomic chair, sipping cold brew with almond milk and watching train wrecks form in other departments, knowing mine wouldn't be one of them. Which is why what happened next felt like being hit with a freight train made of unpaid invoices and men's cologne named Dominance. And hey, before I shove you face first into the legal wood chipper, just a small plug. If you're one of the 90% who listens to stories like this without subscribing, maybe fix that. One click keeps our editor caffeinated, and a like is basically a virtual espresso shot. Anyway, back to the corporate bloodbath. Here's how it worked. Anytime sales tried to pivot strategy mid-quarter, I was the one raising my hand to ask, did legal see this? If a product feature tiptoed into a gray area, I'd gently flag it with a per section 14C. This may be non-compliant. I wasn't trying to be difficult. I was trying to keep us out of court, and it worked. No lawsuits, no breach notices. I even got thank you emails from the client's compliance liaison, about as romantic as it gets in my field. Internally, I was invisible until I wasn't, until someone needed a clause translated or a deal fixed that should have been reviewed 6 steps ago. My desk didn't have a view. I never had a reserved parking spot. But when it came time to renegotiate the biggest contract on our books, guess who the client insisted be on every single call? Me. Not the senior VP of strategic revenue alignment, not the freshly promoted director with a fetish for buzzwords. Just me. For a foolish moment, I let that mean something. Then Brent Holloway showed up, fresh out of some LinkedIn-certified leadership retreat. Tailored jacket, no socks, and a smirk that said, "I've read one book about management, and now I think I'm Steve Jobs." From day one, I could feel it. He thought I was furniture. Worse, dated furniture. But we'll get there. For a few glorious final weeks before Brent's reign of synergy over substance, I was still trusted, still looped in, still CCing legal like my job depended on it. Because, spoiler alert, it did. The ship was steady. The logs were clean. The sky was blue, except I could see the clouds forming. Brent arrived like a magician who got drunk before the funeral. Too loud, too confident, and tossing around buzzwords like Mardi Gras beads. He didn't shake hands. He aligned vision. Didn't introduce himself. He established velocity. Day one, he gathered the entire team and launched into a 20-minute TED Talk about redefining operational agility, which apparently meant ignoring every process we had and praying no one sued us. And with his $300 haircut and frat boy swagger, I knew one thing for certain. This man had never lost a client, or his job, mid-quarter. But he was about to. Brent zeroed in on me faster than anyone else in the department. I was the only one not nodding like a dashboard bobblehead during his kickoff sermon. I just sat there, arms crossed, sipping from a coffee mug that read, "Documentation saves lives." I bought it as a joke. Turned out to be prophetic. Week 2, Brent led a virtual meeting with the strategic accounts team. Client updates, contract amendments, changes that would have set my inbox on fire just a month ago. Except this time, there were no pings, no CCs, no legal loop-ins, just Brent steamrolling through every red flag like it was a video game. I raised my virtual hand. "Have we run this new language by Erica's team in legal yet?" I asked calmly. Brent sighed, loud and theatrical, then rolled his eyes so hard I could practically hear them click. "Stop CCing legal on everything," he snapped. "It's overkill. It scares the client. Makes us look paranoid." And just like that, I wasn't just corrected. I was publicly dismissed. "In case anyone forgot," he continued smirking, "we're not running a courtroom. We're building relationships." I saw it happen. 3 junior reps froze mid-smile. One slowly deleted a draft email that already had "legal" typed in the CC field. Another took a very long sip of water, eyes darting sideways. Me? I muted myself and stared out the window for a long beat. Ohio sky looked like wet cement. Then I unmuted, smiled, and said, "Understood." No protest, no argument. I knew a battle not worth dying on when I saw one, especially not in front of a guy who thought NDAs were a buzzkill and indemnity clauses were optional. But something shifted in me that day. Not fear, not rage, something quieter. A hum in the ribcage, a bone-deep warning. I didn't just stop CCing legal. I removed the autofill. No more default legal@company.com. No more courtesy FYIs. Brent wanted streamlined, he'd get silence. And I watched how fast it unraveled when no one read the fine print. Brent fast-tracked client-facing changes, told the team we were too valuable to get bogged down in red tape. He called me once to ask if we could just remove that indemnity junk from a renewal. I told him calmly that indemnity was the reason we still had a business. He chuckled. "You're adorable," he said. "But we're playing a different game now." Cool. Just let me know when the penalties start stacking up like pancakes at a truck stop. From that moment forward, I became a ghost. Not spooky, not angry, just invisible. My invites to strategy calls? Gone. The same people who once waited on my compliance review now bulldozed ahead without even looping me in. At one point, Brent literally said in a team huddle, "We're all adults here. Use your judgment. We don't need to ask Mom legal every time we sneeze." I sat at my desk, stared at the wall, and wrote one thing down. April 3rd. That was it. No commentary, just the date. Something future me might want to revisit, because I wasn't going to storm his office. I wasn't built like that. I'm built like granite, quiet, immovable, and excellent at erosion. So I followed orders. I stopped involving legal, and I watched the chaos grow like mold under a rug. Every time something looked off, I made a note. Not loud, not dramatic, just the click of a chess piece moving into position. And then came the Slack message. 6:04 a.m. "Big news coming. Be ready to move fast." No greeting, no punctuation, just a digital bark from the self-appointed alpha. By 9:15, Brent was screen sharing a deck titled Expansion Initiative, Accelerated Win-Back Strategy. It had animated bullet points, confetti gifs, and one slide with a literal fist bump emoji. I swear on every red line I've ever reviewed, this was the actual plan. Rapid expansion with our largest client, double user volume. Roll out new data features. Ignore the original contract timelines. Get signatures by Friday. The problem? The contract explicitly required prior security audits and strict data localization reviews before any of that could happen. Brent called them legacy bottlenecks. I called them landmines. Sales drank the Kool-Aid like it was cheap tequila at a company retreat. Brent dangled bonuses, fast-track promotions, and even teased an offsite in Scottsdale if they hit rollout numbers. By lunchtime, the entire strategic team was buzzing with velocity and allergic to due diligence. At 2:37 p.m., the client's liaison sent over a draft amendment. By 2:47, Brent had replied, "Looks good, let's move. No need to nitpick, we're aligned." He never sent it to legal. He never even sent it to me. I found out about the amendment when I overheard a junior rep whispering in the break room. "Do you think we'll get in trouble if we skip the privacy appendix?" Brent said the client's cool with it. And just like that, the blood in my skull turned cold. I walked straight back to my desk, opened a personal folder I hadn't touched in years, created a new document. Title: Client Expansion Risks, Internal Notes, Confidential, and I wrote, not a journal, not a rant, a record, surgical, factual, time-stamped. Clause 5.2 requires 60-day written notice for data localization expansion. No notice filed. Clause 7.1 scaling user count beyond agreed threshold requires revised pricing model and board sign-off. No pricing revision filed. No board sign-off. Clause 9.4 any change in data handling requires updated DPA. No DPA filed, no noise, no alarms. Just one woman, a keyboard, and a growing quiet grudge. By Friday, I had 12 bullet points, each matched with a message, a file, or a quote from Brent's meetings. I wasn't yelling, I was documenting. Because while Brent strutted around the office like a man who invented the concept of contracts, chanting, sign and close, like a frat boy at a beer pong final, I was building a time bomb. He overrode 2 of the internal controls designed to flag contract deviations. I know, because I built one of them. An alert popped up in my inbox. Deviation escalated, no legal review. 10 minutes later, that alert disappeared. Brent had disabled the watchdog. So, I added that to the list too. It felt like watching someone drive 90 through a school zone yelling about innovation. And the worst part? People wanted to believe him, even folks who should have known better. They were tired. Tired of slow reviews, tired of approval bottlenecks, tired of process. Brent sold them a shortcut, and they ate it up like kids eating Skittles for breakfast. Me? I said nothing. Didn't forward anything to Erica in legal. Didn't send warnings. Didn't drop hints. I just kept building. Every skipped clause, every bulldozed requirement, every let's just get it signed. Click. Save. Move on. Eventually, I started printing my logs at home. Filed them in a manila folder labeled Vacation Reading. I kept the formatting clean. Clause reference. Date. Source. Summary. I didn't know how this would end, but I knew it would. You don't strip bolts off a pressurized pipe and expect it to hold forever. Eventually, something bursts, and when it did, I wanted every email, every decision, every legal bypass to whisper the same thing. You told me not to CC legal, so I didn't. The first exclusion was subtle, a forwarded thread from a junior ops analyst asking if I was supposed to be involved in a client-side rollout discussion. I hadn't seen it. The second was direct. Brent hit reply all on a contract chain and deleted me from the recipients. Not even slick about it, just deleted me like an attachment he didn't need. In the next team huddle, he delivered another gem. Too many voices muddies the decision stream. We don't need hall monitors, we need accelerators. I nodded, smiled, even clapped once. Then I opened my log and typed 421. Proactive exclusion from data compliance discussion. Client expansion. Attached forwarded email. Titled the entry. Evidence of intentional circumvention. Because this wasn't a game anymore. This was erosion. Quiet. Steady. Precise. And Brent? He didn't even feel it happening yet. By early May, I was persona non grata on anything forward-facing. My title hadn't changed, but my inbox had. What used to be daily streams of contract approvals and compliance check-ins had dried up into a lonely echo chamber of calendar invites marked, "No longer required." I had become a ghost with a badge. That's when the first real alarm bell rang. Hidden inside an internal mid-month update, I spotted it. Client's data environment now operating in Frankfurt Regional Cloud Zone. Frankfurt, a location not listed in the original DPA. And according to Clause 6.3, any change in data geography required both 1. Formal amendment of the DPA, and 2. Written notice to the client. Neither had happened. 6 days later came the second breach. An internal slide deck proudly declared, "User base expanded by 112% since March." Impressive? Sure, if we lived in a world without contracts. Clause 7.1 was clear. Any user expansion above 50% required a renegotiated pricing structure and board-level review. There'd been neither. I stared at that slide like it was a signed confession. And then, for the first time since Brent's no legal CC sermon, I acted. A formal warning. Just one. Measured, precise, quiet. 2. Brent Holloway, VP Strategic Accounts. CC. Tanya Feldman. Ops Lead. Subject. Expansion Compliance Review. Hi Brent. Noting recent developments user growth and data zone migration. I'd like to flag 2 items that intersect with contractual obligations under Agreement 22 Q4A. Clause 6.3. Requires DPA amendment and client notice for infrastructure localization shifts. Clause 7.1. Requires renegotiated pricing for usage beyond 50% baseline. We may want to pause additional deployments until legal can review. Let me know if you'd like a summary packet. Best, Rachel. That was it. A whisper in a vault. Not loud, not dramatic, just there. Tanya replied 10 minutes later. Thanks. Noted. Brent never responded. I saved the thread, PDF'd it, added it to my growing archive. Label, Final Season. Brent's Greatest Hits. From that point on, the walls closed in tighter. Brent started praising self-starters who moved without legal babysitting. My invites disappeared. Mentions of my name in Slack? Almost none. I wasn't just being trimmed from the org chart. I was being surgically erased. And still, I wrote. Every time a contract skipped legal, it went in the log. Every time I was explicitly excluded from risk discussions, it went in the log. I didn't need a megaphone. I had receipts. And then one morning, the ping hit. 8:07 a.m. Calendar. Invite. Restructure alignment. Talent optimization. That's the kind of phrase you only hear when people are trying not to say layoff. I clicked accept. I already knew. I'd seen this show before. Except this time, I wasn't standing under the guillotine. I'd already stepped aside. I'd been measuring its drop angle for weeks. 10 minutes later, I heard Brent's laugh echoing from behind the thin glass of the HR conference room. He was on a call, celebrating, and not just with anyone, with the client's VP, my former counterpart. The person who used to email me directly for every compliance clause review. Brent's voice boomed through the wall. This is what Agile looks like. Clean comms, fast deployment, no drag from outdated process. Then came the email from HR. As discussed, your role will be sunset as part of a strategic realignment initiative. Sunset, like I was a broken app or a discontinued vitamin supplement. My last day would be 2 weeks out. No handoff, no retention offer, just deleted. And then Brent called. No hi, no preamble, just syrup in his voice and fake empathy dripping off every syllable. Wanted to reach out personally. Look, this isn't performance related. You've been solid, great even. But we're moving fast now. Need folks who can move. That word, move, hung in the air like burnt popcorn. I paused, breathed, and said, Understood. I'll initiate the wrap-up protocol. You're a pro, he said. Knew you'd get it. Appreciate you keeping this clean. That word, clean, twisted in my throat like a rusted nail. So I spent the rest of the day doing exactly that. Clean. Exported what was mine. Backed up only the things I had every right to. And finished compiling the archive I had spent months building. And then I opened a blank draft. 2. Compliance board at company.com. Subject, contractual risk indicator. Strategic accounts expansion. No drama. No leaks. Just 12 pages of calm, clause-tagged, time-stamped evidence, written like a flag being folded. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. Didn't even tell my partner. That night, I went home, cracked open a beer, and watched the rain chew through the edge of the porch. Somewhere in the dark, I could feel the anger circling. But I didn't let it in. Not yet. Because something colder had taken its place. Not rage. Readiness. Brent thought he'd won. He strutted through the company like a rooster on Red Bull, slapping backs and cashing praise for Q2 numbers that hadn't even closed. The client's VP seemed sold. No one was asking where the compliance documentation was. No one questioned the missing legal reviews or the shredded process trail. But I knew. These things always come due. Compliance doesn't scream. It whispers. And then it swings. When it did, my name would be there. Not as the forgotten voice, but as the one who warned them. It was a Thursday when Tanya emailed me. Not from her work account, from her Gmail. Subject line, holy, no greeting, no preamble, just a screenshot. At the top, the client's legal department logo. At the bottom, 4 bolded words. Formal breach of contract. No context needed. I read it 3 times. Each time, the air got thinner. Breach grounds listed: failure to submit revised DPA upon infrastructure migration, unauthorized user expansion, exceeding volume limits, material changes enacted without legal approval. Estimated penalty, $2.6 million with right to terminate the full agreement, pending board review. The crown jewel Brent used to justify my deletion? Now sitting on a legal chopping block, the axe already swinging. I didn't reply. What was I going to say? Told you so? You looped me out. You chose speed over stability. Now the invoice had arrived, with interest. By noon, another ping. LinkedIn. A message from Riley, one of the junior reps still with the company. Did you see what happened? Legal is going nuclear. Brent's freaking. Someone warned the board. I didn't respond. Just let the panic echo. That afternoon, I imagined the office as a submarine with a cracked hull. Emails ricocheting like sonar. Execs tossing around phrases like non-material breach and good faith remedy window, while sweat soaked through their branded polos. And me? I was outside the blast radius, no longer in the meetings, no longer scrambling between sales and legal, no longer buffering Brent's ego with forced smiles and a burning stomach. I was out. And oh, how they needed me now. Erica, one of the senior legal counsels I used to CC on everything, finally got pulled in. I knew exactly when it happened. Tanya forwarded me her reply. Subject line, urgent. Timeline of client expansion activity. Erica's response. Why weren't we notified? Where are the compliance flags? Was legal ever consulted? They weren't rhetorical questions. Everyone already knew the answer. But now the absence had weight. Now the lack of answers was evidence. I pictured Brent in that meeting, face tight, collar damp, trying to spin words like agile and velocity into a legal defense. I imagined ops pulling message logs for conversations they weren't copied on, trying to reverse engineer a paper trail that I'd already built, that I'd sealed, that I'd submitted 24 hours before my last day. One woman, one email, no CCs, just the shadow inbox we were instructed to use for high-risk compliance escalations. No fireworks, no tantrum, just structure. I didn't post on LinkedIn, didn't DM Brent, didn't text anyone. I just sat on my porch with my beer and let the breach notice play in my mind like a lullaby. There's a silence that comes after the screaming, the kind where no one knows who's in charge anymore, where you can still smell the smoke. That's where they were now. And I was watching, from the shore, dry, distant, done. Not vindictive, just right. The investigation didn't explode. It unfolded, quiet and clinical, like legal was building a crime scene diagram out of slide decks and Slack threads. Tanya, now unofficially moonlighting as my war correspondent, told me the team was reconstructing everything: contract edits, email trails, internal approvals. They weren't looking for excuses. They were looking for accountability, and instead, they found a vacuum. No legal reviews, no escalation logs, no flagged violations. Just Brent's charm, glossed over decks, and voice notes urging sales to keep legal out of it. They'll slow us down. It didn't stay quiet for long. One junior legal associate, Alina, I think, was digging through the compliance audit archive when she saw something strange. A single email sent directly to the board compliance alias. Subject line: Contractual Risk Indicator, Strategic Accounts Expansion. Time stamped exactly 10:24 a.m., the day before my last sign-off. No CCs, no attention seeking, just 12 pages, bullet-pointed, clause-tagged, and signed by me. Tanya said the moment Alina opened it, the air changed. Legal had been asking, who knew? Now they had an answer. Me. And I hadn't just known. I had said something before it all collapsed. I followed Brent's directive and still escalated, exactly how protocol instructed. Alina brought the email to Erica. Erica read it twice, highlighted 3 sections, and forwarded it to the general counsel with a subject line that said everything. This changes the timeline. And it did. That single email shifted the narrative from "we all missed it" to "we were warned and ignored it." Brent's version of events shattered. His lean innovation? Now a documented, preventable breach. The boardroom thread blew up. Legal, finance, risk, everyone got involved. The email had been opened, downloaded, archived, and the beauty of it? It didn't feel like revenge. It didn't scream. It was surgical. Just a scalpel of truth. There's a particular kind of power in knowing the arrow you launched months ago is still mid-flight, spinning silently toward its target while your opponent celebrates. Then it lands. Not with blood or fireworks, just a whisper. She warned you. I didn't need to testify. I didn't need to show up. My part was done. The evidence was already in motion. All I had to do was wait for the sound it would make when it hit the wall behind Brent's smirk. They booked the boardroom on a Sunday. No catered lunch. No chit-chat. Just suits, silence, and dread. Tanya said Brent arrived early, pacing outside the glass doors with his phone glued to his ear and his shirt collar damp with stress. Inside, the GC opened with the words that only mean 2 things: relief or ruin. We have clarity. Legal presented the timeline, decision by decision, clause by clause. Erica walked through every contract violation, each opportunity Brent had to stop the bleeding and didn't. And then she held up my email. "This is the earliest formal escalation on file," she said, turning it so my name was visible. "It outlines each material risk, matched to contract language and timelines." She paused. She followed protocol. Legal had been removed from communications. She complied with internal instruction by submitting directly to the board alias. Then the GC spoke, flat voice, deliberate words. "We've confirmed the breach is valid under contract terms. We have no legal buffer, no mitigation trail. The client is within rights to terminate and enforce penalties. Estimated losses, $50 million minimum." Silence. Brent fidgeted like a child in a chair too big for him. Then he finally tried to speak. "Okay, wait. This wasn't sabotage. It was a process breakdown. We were operating lean. That was the directive. I inherited these bottlenecks. He motioned toward my name on the printout like it was a weapon. "She didn't loop in legal either." The GC didn't blink. "She was instructed not to, in a team-wide call. Multiple witnesses confirm. She adjusted accordingly and still flagged risks through the proper channel," Erica added, calm and lethal. "You can't amputate the brakes and blame the driver when the car crashes." The room fell heavy. The board chair leaned forward. "Did you understand her role included legal oversight of client expansion?" Brent nodded. "Did you remove that function?" A longer pause, a smaller nod. "Then this breach is yours." There was no argument after that, just paper shuffling, a cough, the barely audible sound of chairs adjusting as power shifted. Tanya said Brent's face had gone grayish, his expression flickering like a bad Zoom feed, somewhere between denial and freefall. But the meeting wasn't done. Not yet. The room turned its attention back to the screen, where one final slide remained. The email, my email, to compliance.board@company.com. Subject: Contractual Risk Indicator, Strategic Accounts Expansion. Date: the day before I was terminated. CC: none. That last detail, no CC, might as well have been a gravestone. The board chair leaned forward again, elbows on polished wood, voice calm, but sharp enough to cut steel. "You told her not to involve legal." Brent twitched, something between a smile and a facial glitch. "Well, yes, but the point was to streamline. Nobody expected—" He was cut off. Erica didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Then you assumed the legal burden, and you lost us $15 million. Brent blinked, lips parted like a car alarm that hadn't figured out it was broken. Erica turned to the board. This wasn't a systemic failure. This wasn't ambiguity. This was a deliberate removal of legal oversight. The employee in question followed internal protocols. She identified risks, documented them, and escalated them to the board alias, precisely as required. She did everything short of setting off the building's fire alarm. Tanya said you could hear a pin drop. No one moved. No one dared interrupt. Brent reached for his water like it might shield him. His hand shook as the glass clinked against the table, louder than his final defense. "I didn't think it would escalate." The GC didn't even turn to him. She addressed the board directly. "There is no confusion here. This was not miscommunication. It was one man dismantling protocol because he believed process was beneath him. The breach is isolated. The consequences are quantifiable, and the documentation is conclusive." As if summoned by fate, the projector auto-refreshed, reloading the email in full. My name, the timestamp, the clause references, all of it suspended above Brent like divine judgment. He slumped in his chair, pale, eyes blinking fast, the back of his neck blotchy with stress. Tanya said he looked like he wanted to disappear, but there was nowhere to go. The final silence lasted almost a full minute. Then the board chair closed his folder, stood up slowly, and said to no one in particular, "Let the record reflect. We were warned." That was it. No yelling, no slammed doors, just the subtle sound of laptops closing and suits walking away from the wreckage. Brent remained seated, alone, staring at the screen. My name still glowing. No CCs, no legal, just consequences. I didn't dance, didn't post a meme. I didn't send Brent a smug LinkedIn message. What would be the point? He'd hear the silence soon enough. The client terminated the agreement within 72 hours. The company lost its anchor account. Board confidence cratered. Brent was out by the end of the month. Quietly, of course. No all-hands farewell. Just his name scrubbed from the org chart like dry erase marker. Tanya emailed me one last time. They cleared his desk before noon. Legal took over the whole floor. I didn't reply. Just closed my laptop and went for a walk. Wind in my face, hands in my pockets. The kind of peace that only comes when you know you played your piece. Perfectly, patiently. No rage, no revenge, just the truth, laid out like a chessboard, and a queen left standing.